Hi guys, so I want to give you an insight on what we're covering today in the class. Today we're going to go through the first chapter in business, which is called People in Business. We'll go through that. We'll cover also contract law, and then also in the class we're going to look at consumer conflict, and we're going to look at the Sale Goods Supply of Service Act. Within that though, it's really, really important in the class is you make sure you've got your notes written in front of you, because we'll be working off down for the class. And on top of that as well, just make sure you've got you followed the stuff, the insight I'm saying about the marketing scheme. So I want you to, at the end of today's class, be able to see like, right, how is it you break into the H1, H2 areas through knowing the little thing about the marketing scheme. So it's not enough to just know the content very well of the course. It's just as important to know your exam day, how you'll tackle the business exam of the day, like how you'll manage your time and how you manage the marketing scheme and how that works. Okay, so that's equally as important as the content we're going to cover in today's class. Okay, thank you. Okay, hi everybody, my name's Ronald Murdoch, and today I'm going to take you through Unit 1 in Business, right? So, first thing when you're looking at up here on the board is what we're covering today. If you want to follow me over here, we're going to go through Unit 1. Now, the couple of things to look out for on this is where you see it in the Leaving Cert. You'll see it really for probably at least one short question, but it could come up for more than one, it could come up for a few, but we'll just put down as one short question for 10 marks, and you see it every year as a long question as well, which is always for 60 marks. Add that up together, 70 out of 400. Today we'll be covering 17.5% of your exam. Okay, that's the aim of today's class, right? Now, there's 7 units in the course. We'll be looking into Unit 1. We won't be able to do it all today in only an hour and 15. What I'm going to go for is just look for the harder questions and the hard, more difficult topics in Unit 1. We'll hammer into them and try and get you set up for that, right? The couple of questions, though, do you see the first one up there as well? Do you need the notes? They're absolutely crucial. So I know if you make sure you download them there, and try and get them out of print version. Like see the way if I have them here, they're out in print. It'd be much more beneficial for you guys, because that way you can write in any important stuff and you can mark it in that way. Like, it's much better having a hard copy of the notes so you can use that in study and stuff like that. Because what I'm really going to be doing with you guys today is just taking you through the notes and telling you what's important and what you need to look out for in your Leaving Cert. Okay, so absolutely make sure to take the time out and get the notes up in front of you. Okay, if you have to have them on the digital form, that's fine, but make sure you've got a pen and paper with you and you're taking notes of what's really important. That's it there. And then really what we're looking at here as well is when you're setting your target grade, and this is something you want to make sure you're looking at when you're going with business, is that like you want to really it's a very fair exam, business. And the good thing about this exam is that, like, if you sit down, if you put the work in, I can say to a student, they put the work in throughout their Leaving Cert, and they do all the exams and they get on top of their course. It's manageable to get a H1. It really is. Like, I had before my first year teaching in the day school, like 20% of my students got a H1 in business out of 50 students, or out of 11 H1s out of 52. Okay, and that's just the way it goes. Okay, it's very doable to get a H1 if you get organised and if you take the proper approach from the start. Okay, now why is that so important? And the big question is, why don't students hit their target grade? So even saying right there, it's like I had 11 out of 52 that got a H1. That year, the Leaving Cert, the H1 rate, and you can look it up, the H1 rate was 4% of everybody who sat higher level business. The amount of students that got a H1, the Leaving Cert, was 4% of the candidates. The H2 rate was only 16%. Okay, then after that, at H3, 20%. And it's the pattern every single year. And this, what I want to mark there is, like, why don't students get their target grade? If I remember chatting to students, most of them will tell me that they're aiming for H1 or H2, and they have to factor in there that that's only 20% of the students who will actually make it into that range. So that's what with business. There's a couple of things you need to look out for. And the first question there is, why don't students get their target grade? The first thing you want to make sure is you're dead accurate with your definitions, okay? And this is what I mean, like we know straight away when an entrepreneur is, okay? Somebody who starts a business and taken from there. Like they set up the business, that's fine. But like literally before the class started there, I just Googled. I typed in, you can probably find this definition, you type in like, what's the best definition for an entrepreneur? Basically just type that into Google, right? This thing popped up here, okay? So an entrepreneur is a person who takes an idea, product or service and does whatever is necessary to introduce to the marketplace where it can produce revenue. If you write that in your Leaving Cert, you're not getting full marks. You might, if they were grading that out of 10, you might get maybe 3. Although that looks absolutely perfect, you probably only get about 3 marks or 4 marks out of 10 for that, depending on how they set the marketing scheme. But you haven't hit the key words. So an entrepreneur, 3 big things I want you to know. They start a business, they take a risk to start a business with the aim of making a profit. And the key word that's not mentioned up there on the board is the risk that the entrepreneur takes, the personal and financial risk that they take. And if you leave that out, you're dropping the marks. But that's what I mean with this exam. It's not necessarily a question of who understands business the best. And a lot of this is you're walking into a marketing scheme. And they have to do it that way when they're grading the Leaving Cert, because there's so many different ways you can define an entrepreneur. They have to narrow it down. They say, right, the candidate needs to mention risk, they start a business, and they need to mention profit. And every time you hit those keywords, the examiner will tick off and they'll throw marks at you, okay? But you have to learn how to play by their rules, and that's the way the exam's going to work. It's all built around keywords. And that's what I mean going back here, guys. If I could stress one little small thing, it's that students don't know this. Students, when they're going to Leaving Cert, they open up some definitions, and they open up their book and they try and learn the definitions word for word. But like, how could they don't correct the Leaving Cert like that. The way they're correcting the Leaving Cert is they're going through your points. Did you explain the points using the keywords? If you start to adapt that approach, that's when your grades will start to shoot up. And that's what I drill into my students every year. And that's how they do so well in their Leaving Cert, okay? So that's why you'll notice here today, like, when we're going through this class, like, I'm just going to be like telling you, right, mark that word in, highlight that word, build your answer around that in the Leaving Cert. That's how you get the points. So the classes where I'm going through, won't be trying to like give you loads of long, interesting stories about business, because that's not going to help you in your Leaving Cert, okay? My job is to show you guys how to get to maximise your grade, and that's what we're going to do today, okay? So that's the first thing. You're setting your target grade. The general, honest bit of advice I would have is aim high. Aim high and say, like, right, aim for H1. Like I said that to my students that first year we opened the day school. I said, like, go for H1. If you put the work in, you really hammer through this, you put your work in, you'll get a H1 with me. And they did. But they followed the plan. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you're going through it here, you're studying, that's what you guys have to do. It's very, very, very doable to get a H1. Cover the course, spot the keywords, practice, make sure you've got your time management right, and you keep working through the past questions, and you'll set yourself up. This course has been around since 1999, okay? So you've got 20 odd years of past questions to work off. There's not many new things they can ask you about, and that's a massive, massive advantage you guys have, okay? So, remember the plan today. What we're going to go through is, starting off from this, is I'm just going to mark in, take you guys through the notes, but we're going to skip over some of the easier things. So what I want to do is find the hard things, focus on that, and then we'll set you guys up well. So if you guys open up there, guys, to your notes, it's on page 3. And there you have it there, guys, the entrepreneur. We make sure to mark in there. See page 3 there, number 1. Draw a box around that word there, risk. See page 3, number 1 there, the entrepreneur. Draw an arrow into that word there, risk, okay? And highlight those words there. They take a person who thinks of new ideas and turns their ideas into business realities, okay? They turn their idea into a business, okay? They take a risk with the aim of making a profit. Make sure you mark that in. Their goal is to make a profit. So they think of an idea which they turn into a business. They take a risk. Their aim is to make a profit. That's what you have there, an entrepreneur. Very good one as well there, right? You see option A and B. When you're given an example in the Leaving Cert, and this is what the whole plan is with today, so I want to show you how the marketing scheme works. When you learn the marketing scheme, you learn the rules of the game, your marks are going to go up again. So one big thing, if you ever give an example of an entrepreneur, any example, don't give one word examples in your Leaving Cert, okay? So see that there with the entrepreneur, examples of entrepreneurs in the notes. So number 1, it goes through like Mark Zuckerberg and loads of detail, and then you've got Bill Gates. If I was in a Leaving Cert, I'd go with option B, Bill Gates. It's shorter, you're saving yourself time. There's 2 things though, okay? When they want you to give an example of an entrepreneur, you're not allowed to just say their name, okay? You have to say their name and what business they set up. So draw a box around there, guys. Bill Gates, Microsoft. Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook. They can't accept it if you just give the entrepreneur's name, because then it gets really messy down the line. The marketing scheme, I just make up a name, Chris O'Brien, and that could be my example of an entrepreneur. You have to make sure you mention the company, the entrepreneur, and the business they set up. Right, that's grand. Next one there, guys, you'll spot there in the definition. See, I've highlighted some of these keywords, but they ask you guys for a definition of an investor. So what we're looking at really on page 3 is just the people in business. It's like just an introduction into different people we see in business. First one there, entrepreneur, straightforward enough. Investor, That's the person, grant, who gives the money to the entrepreneur to set up the business. Use the word capital. Draw a box around there. Capital, fancy word for money. And circle that in your notes there with the aim is to make a return on investment. Okay, so like if you're an investor, you give an entrepreneur 10 grand to set up a business. They might say to you, look, give me the 10 grand, and I'll pay you back 12. So you've made a return on investment. You've gotten your 10 back plus an extra €2,000. That's what they mean, their return on investment. It can come in loads of different ways. They could give you a percentage of the business, lots of things. But your aim is, if you're putting in 10 into the business, if you're investing 10 grand in, you want to get more than that 10 grand out. That's your return on investment, all right? And that's it broken down. Very straightforward there. You've got the example of investors, Duncan Bannatyne, Dragon's Den, anything like that you can use there for your investor, okay? If you jump over there, guys, to page 4, you've got number 3 and 4 there, the employer and employee, okay? Very, very straightforward. You can reach them in your own time. Number 5, guys, the producer. Just take a little note there in the producer, guys. They take raw materials to produce finished goods, okay? So whoever made this marker, they're producers, okay? They're not providing a service. They get raw materials and they make it into a finished good. Draw a box around those 2 words with a producer. There's a little trick question they've done a couple of years in the business exam, and you'll see it there. Even if you want to mark in there the years, draw a little arrow there beside producer, and I'll tell you the year there as well. The year came up is it was on 2008, and in the Leaving Cert, right? Just draw an arrow beside this, 2008, and they say give an example of a cooperative relationship that exists between a competitive cooperative relationship that exists between 2 producers in the same line of business. So you had to spot the word producer because they wanted an example. So if you said stuff like Ryanair and Aer Lingus, they're not producers, they provide services, you'd have lost the marks there. So just look out for that little question there. And in 2009 they did it as well. It said discuss how consumers may benefit from a competitive relationship between producers. Again, that little word popping up there, producers. You have to make sure when you're giving your examples, you use the example of, like, let's say Toyota and BMW or anything like that, because they're 2 producers. They're producing cars. Don't say like service providers, like they have to make sure they make a product. That's just little things. They won't ask you. Remember, it's higher level business. So they're not going to ask you, like, explain what the producer is. They know most students will get that, but they'll subtly try and catch out with those little tricks there. Okay, so make sure you mark that there. 2008, 2009. You can see it there in the questions there. It's on page 19 and 20 if you want to check back there in your notes. Okay, that's fine there. Consumer, again, page 4. The consumer is someone who buys a product, highlight there in your notes for their own personal use. And then a service provider, okay, number 7 there on page 5, a service provider. They provide an essential support service to the entrepreneur. That could be something like an accountant, okay, that's fine. The big one here, guys, on page 5 is the interest group, okay. So draw an arrow into this, guys. Make sure you mark this. Make sure you know this very, very well. An interest group, and highlight there. It hasn't come up since 2014. Okay, so it's going to pop up very, very soon. This question here, and when they ask you guys about an interest group, right? Now, an interest group. What you'd see with this is a good example of an interest group might be something like the ASTI that represents the Association of Secondary School Teachers of Ireland, right? So the ASTI, they're a trade union as well, but they represent all the teachers in Ireland, right? Or the majority of teachers, secondary school teachers in Ireland, right? Now, what you want to mark there in this is that, like, you wrote something vague, like they said, explain the ASTI. You said, oh, the ASTI is an organisation that will look after a group of people and try and push forward a motion of a group of people. That won't get you any marks. What you want to mark in there with the ASTI, it's an organisation, and highlighting the notes, it'll be in there in bold, that represents a common viewpoint. Okay, so that's the first thing you want to mark in there. Now remember, again, the examiners will be very much robotic when they're grading this. You say the keywords, you'll get the marks in that. Okay, so make sure you see that they're an organisation that represents a common viewpoint of a particular group of people. Okay, that's what we have there for an interest group. The question, right, and the way they always ask this, and this is what students miss in their Leaving Cert, right? And I know if you're watching this, you'll be like, right, interest group, this is very straightforward, I understand this. It's not necessarily that, okay? What we need to look out for is when they ask this in your Leaving Cert, guys, and you look it up 2014, it was 2009 as well, we saw it there as well, 2004 as well. When they ask you guys to explain an interest group, the word that pops up, this the trick, is the word there, the role, okay? Explain the role of it that interest groups adopt in the business world, right? So what you want to look out for when they say role is like, what role do they play in our economy? What role do they play in business? What they're doing, guys, is they influence the decision-making process. Okay, so this is what interest groups do. And then you see it in the notes, it'll be written in much more detail. I'm just writing up the keywords on the board to steer you through it, but they'll influence decisions. Okay, that's their role that we see with interest groups, and that's you guys need to be spotting. Okay, so interest group, it can be lots of things. They'll just be an organisation that push forward a particular view. It could be like a charity, it could be something like Greenpeace, it could be like what you see there, ASTI, but it's an organisation that represents a viewpoint of a group of people. But their role, guys, is to influence how decisions are made. And there's one key word as well that you need to make sure you mark down there, it's in bold there in the notes, guys, is how do they influence decisions that are made? They do this by lobbying. Okay, and that's what you guys want to look out for. Remember, guys, highlight this, mark it in red, draw arrows into it. Has it come up since 2014? We need to make sure we know it inside out. So we'll go down through this in detail, right? Interest group, starting from the start there, organisation represents common viewpoint, goals, particular group, perfect. They may oppose or support the activities in business in order to get what they want, underline pressurise the government to change their practices. This is done through, and underline there, lobbying, guys. This is a compulsory point. It's absolutely essential, okay? I'll guarantee you, if they ask you on interest groups, you're going to see the word lobbying in the marketing scheme. Influence decision-making process by promoting a particular point of view with governments. Now, I've drawn out a little arrow beside there, like how do they lobby effectively? Drawn an arrow in with that, guys. That can be done by petitions, okay? Stuff like getting people to sign petitions and then push it forward to the government, and the government will see then the people take it very seriously. Other one there, guys, is boycotts. They may organise boycotts or publicity campaigns against people behaving in an unethical manner. Circle that as well. So, and then the last thing there, examples of interest groups, very important, guys, because they've looked for two, a lot of times in Leaving Cert, two different examples. The Irish Farmers Association, right? The IFA lobbies national governments to initiate, underline those three words there, pro-farming policies. Okay, so the Irish Farmers Association, they lobby national governments to initiate pro-farming policies, and right in there, double up on this point, have a lot to say about the IFA, because they've come up a couple of times in the Leaving Cert in business. Rather seen as well, so they'll lobby the European Union. Okay, it goes into stuff you'll see later on. You know that I was saying earlier, there's 7 units in the course. When you look at Unit 7, they talk about the European Union. And Ireland in the European Union, we get a lot of money, Irish farmers get a lot of money through the Common Agricultural Policy, which is set up by the EU, where the EU will basically just give money to Irish farmers to support them. Now the role here of the IFA is they will lobby. They've got an office in Brussels where the European Commission is based and the European Parliament is based, and they'll lobby, the IFA will lobby the European Parliament and the European Commission to implement more pro-farming policies and basically just get more money and more support for Irish farmers. So that's their role, okay? So remember again, when you're going, but you need to know all this stuff, because this is a damn hard question when it comes up in the exam. The other member is saying there, I'm not going to waste your time explaining the easy stuff. We're going to jump into the hard things today. So when you're talking about interest groups, remember again, an organisation that represents a common viewpoint. Okay, so how do they do this? They'll lobby, that the role there when they're lobbying, they'll try and influence decisions. Make sure you mark in there as well. Things we had earlier, they'll organise boycotts against businesses that may behave in an unethical manner, and they'll also organise petitions, and they'll try and influence decisions that way. And then also we've got the IBEC. We've got IBEC, right? Irish Businesses Employers Confederation. Second one down there at the bottom of page 5. And what they'll do is they'll represent employers in industrial relation matters, and they'll negotiate with the government in ICTU and Irish wage agreements. Just look out for IBEC. That's the organisation that represents business owners, okay? And they might do things like they might be lobbying the government to things like maybe lower minimum wage, and that would make it cheaper for businesses to hire workers, or anything like that. That's the role that you'll see there with IBEC, okay? So, going in this here, I just want to show you what I mean with this and why this question is so important. If you guys open up there into page 16 of the notes, right, you see I've got it broken down there in huge amounts of detail, the examples there on page 16, okay? Describe the role of any two interest groups in business. Now please spot there, guys, see that there, 2014. This is big marks beside page 16 right there in your top of your notes. Last time they asked this question, and this is the longest it's ever been left off, okay? So that's just what you want to make sure you remember. The second thing there is describe the role of any two interest groups in business. Okay, so when we're looking at this here, they didn't say define interest groups. Okay, you can put down your definition, you'll get marks for, if you say something like what it is, but that's not what the marks are going for. See what I said earlier there, guys? The word they're looking for is the role of any two interest groups. So you make sure you've got the examples there, like the ASTI that represent teachers, you've got the IFA that represent the farmers, you've got IBEC that represent businesses, Irish Businesses Employers Confederation. All these acronyms are important as well, because in Leaving Cert they can throw them out and say, what do these letters stand for? They've asked that before. What does IBEC stand for? Irish Businesses Employers Confederation. You can see it down there. Example number 3 in the notes. So you've got them there, and that's the angle there. Now, one little quick thing, okay? So see what represents common viewpoint. I'd be highlighting there interest group. I'd highlight represents a common viewpoint, seeks to influence decisions, and then you've got the examples there: negotiation, boycott, and a massive one that I put out there. They'll threaten legal action. So they might just send you a solicitor's letter. Okay, and they'll threaten legal action. That's another way they'll try and influence how business worlds operate, right? But that's fine. That's the key thing there. So you've got marks there within that even, guys, for naming it. Now, come here, right there. See that there on page 16? You've got loads of information there. You don't need all of that, okay? So don't think for a second you have to have all that there. I'm just giving you examples of what I'm basically giving you the marking scheme, but you guys can pull out of that what you want. But if you had said literally there, let's say for example number 1, if you highlight there Irish Congress, trade unions, and if you put in the first bullet point and didn't put in 2 or 3, you still would have gotten full marks, okay? But I'm just showing, the reason I put in all the marking scheme is some students from different schools might have different examples in their notes and might give the, different ones. These are the points that they would have accepted. But see the marking scheme's broken down, guys, at the bottom you see it there. See you've gotten 3 for literally just mentioning any one of those bullet points. 3 marks for referring to the interest group because they want an example, and then 3 marks give 1 point on them, and then you get your 6 out of 6. Okay, so even there, guys, that's all they've been looking for there. If you guys look over there again for a quick example there, you can see another one there though. It's on page 19. Okay, you see the same thing there, guys. Page 19, 2009, describing examples the role interest groups have in business. Same thing, recycling itself again. Fire that down and see that there though, guys. Spot the little things. There's little clues in that. Using examples, highlight examples, plural. They want more than one. So you see it there, page 19, 2009. Same thing there. And then you guys can see it there for the last time they looked for it again, guys, was in page 24, 2003, and just says illustrate the role interest groups play in business. And that's what you saw that there. Everyone see that there, 2003, and highlight the word there at the top. This is another little thing to look out for in your business exam. When they say illustrate, that doesn't mean explain, it means explain using an example. So everyone be there in that, and to page 24, the top there, highlight the word illustrate, mark it in the notes. Illustrate means explain using an example, and that's what they want there on that question. Okay, but we're going to see that soon. It's just a matter of when we're going to see it, not if it's going to come up. It's going to come up in the next couple of years, really confident of that. Okay, that's fine. If we jump back there to page 6 very quickly there. Quick thing there on page 6 of the notes. Relationship between stakeholders, you've got cooperative and competitive. Okay, so make sure if you're looking there, new little thing there, page 6, cooperative and competitive. Cooperative relationships, what they're looking at for here, see that there I've got the big box on top of it there on page 6. You write this down beside there, 8 times in 20 years, right there, 40% of your Leaving Cert papers, we've seen this, okay? All you need for is on that page alone, so right there, that box there, 40% of papers, and right there in that big box on top of page 6, right there, incredibly important, make sure you mark this in. So we'll go down through it. So what they're looking for here is what's the relationship between stakeholders and business. They only accept 2. Cooperative or competitive, okay? So we're looking at the first one there, cooperative. So what they mean there is that, like, you can have it with me and my employer, and that's a cooperative relationship, okay? So what we see here is both parties are working towards shared goals for mutual benefit, and this is a win-win situation. Okay, so see the way there when I'm explaining cooperative, I'm not saying something like, oh, this when everybody gets on well and they help each other out. Anything like that guarantees you 0 marks. So that there, both parties work towards shared goals, underline that, for mutual benefit, underline that, and underline win-win. So if you're in the Leaving Cert, they ask you to define A cooperative relationship, both parties work towards shared goals for mutual benefit, and this is win-win. That's you there, guys. That's they're looking for there for a cooperative relationship. Okay, a competitive relationship. What we see here is this is rival parties. Okay, so both parties are rival parties working against each other. And then this is win-lose. Okay, so make sure that's they're looking for there. Very easy marks to pick off when you're defining them. Okay, so you see that there, number 2, guys, cooperative, competitive relationship. Number 2, this involves 2 or more rival parties, both want to be successful. This is impossible. This is a win-lose relationship. Very, very straightforward. And make sure you've got a few examples of that there. Okay, so you see that there, with the example there of cooperative relationship. Jump back to number 1. Cooperative relationship could be 2 entrepreneurs, 2 rival companies working together. What I'd write there, a great example to use is like I write this in the notes, guys. If they're ever looking for that, will be a cooperative relationship is when two rival companies share resources. Okay, so imagine if you had like Toyota and Honda or something like that making cars, and they share technology. When 2 rival parties, a cooperative relationship could be 2 competing businesses sharing technology with each other, sharing resources. Okay, and then a competitive relationship could be something straightforward like a price war. Okay, anything like that. Just maybe write them in beside it in blue or red. But this is marks. Remember, I'm saying it's very, very straightforward stuff. But I want to make sure you've got this tied down, because you look over your past papers, come up 8 times in the last 20 years, 40% of your papers. You can't waffle this. You have to hit the keywords, and that'll get you the marks there. Okay. Or another good one as well of cooperative relationship would be. So remember in lobbying, all right. And what we see here, we saw this earlier with the lobbying, but this went. When you'll try and like pressurize somebody to vote a certain way or to behave a certain way. So like you could see 2 companies, like imagine Ryanair and Aer Lingus at the moment during COVID-19 lobbying the Irish government to lower taxes on airlines or to give airlines a bailout. That's when they're both working together. It could be a case of them both lobbying the government together, so to improve business conditions for airlines, like lower taxes. But when Ryanair and Aer Lingus both lobby the government at the same time, pressurise the government a certain way, that could be them cooperating together. Price war and like that could be them engaging in competitive relationship. Okay, so and that's it. That's very straightforward. One tiny little note. See that there? Can I use dynamic or dependent? The answer is no. It's not on many. It was in 1 or 2 of the books, but just look out for it. It's not in the marking scheme. Okay, so make sure. See the way I put a screenshot there? The marking scheme, competitive or cooperative. Students some years have written dependent and dynamic, and they just got 0 marks. Okay, so don't overthink that. You might see, can I use dependent, dynamic or dependent? It's only if it's in your books in schools. You're definitely, if you see it in any book, you just have to ignore it. It's not in the marking scheme. Okay, there's a bit of confusion around that, but it's 100% not in the marking scheme.